Hi, so welcome back. So as you can see, I've built in the skeleton and just gone through and painted in the weights. So if I select the jaw like so, we can see the mesh actually moves with the skeleton. There's even we can even manipulate his ears if we want. But for this skeleton, as you can see, there are lots of joints. There's all sorts of things going on here. So I'll just quickly go through some of the joint placements. Obviously we've got the jaw. We've also got joints in there which control the tongue. But on top of this we have these extra lip joints. And as you can see, they're just for pulling and pulling the lip shapes around. You know, the lower lip joints are connected to the jaw. You know, because obviously you want to open the jaw and you want the lower lid joints to go with it. The upper lid joints aren't connected to the head, they're connected to this extra joint in the middle here. And this is so that we can pull the whole upper lip around independently, and you can see the teeth move with it as well. You know, it just gives us that extra bit of flexibility. There's also joints in here just so you can manipulate the nostrils and the nose, you know, the cheeks. You know, just think of as many things as you can, you know, possibly pull around on a face. I mean, obviously there's a lot more we could probably add into this face, but for this particular character, these work okay. And then the eyebrows, like so, for just pulling those around so that you can, you know, frown, look angry. And then we have the eyes. Now, the eyelids, you can see there, we do have them driven by blend shapes. That gives us the blink. And that's because, yes, we could animate these joints, but as you can see, they'd be a bit tricky. And we'd end up having to use set-driven keys to get those to work correctly. You'd also have problems with weighting and, you know, getting the weights to look right and getting the eyelids to close properly. And that's where blend shapes are good, because you can get those exact shapes. What these joints are here for are basically an extra layer of control. You know, we can have the blend shapes to cause the eyes to blink, but we can have these joints here to give shape to those eyelids. So, you know, you see this all the time in cartoons. You know, the eyelids are often animated as well to help emphasize the emotion. So if he's angry, the eyelids will look cross, as well as the eyebrows, you know. So this just gives you an extra level of control. And obviously there's only 6 controls there, but you could put in as many as you wanted if you wanted more precise control over those eyelids. Now these are parented to another joint, excuse me, and the reason for this is, as the eyeballs rotate, we want the eyelids to move as well. Because if you watch somebody as they look around, your eyelids naturally move following the eye. And what this joint is ultimately going to do is, as the eye moves around, this joint will be driven by a utility node just to move the eyelids slightly like so. So basically they'll take the movement of the eyeball, tone it down by a fraction so that they move as well. So in effect, adding these 3 joints in has given us control over the eyelids to manipulate the shape, and it will allow us to for the eyelids to follow the eyeballs. You know, and then obviously there's a joint in there which will control the eyeball as well. But that's just some of the reasonings why some of the joints are there. We've got the eyelids, we've got the joints around the mouth. You know, we've got one here for the corner of the mouth, so we can pull that around as well. You know, you'll notice it's not fully weighted to that joint. It's just to give it an extra bit of fluidity and a bit more of, you know, sort of a squashy face. And remember, these joints are here to influence the blend shapes. You know, we've got the blend shapes for the main shapes. So that's the skeleton built. And we want to start thinking of telling these controls here to start driving the skeleton. Now what we could do is we could say, okay then, let's just constrain them. So let's say that joint there we want, well no, we want the, actually let's not use that, let's use something a bit more obvious. So let's just use the cheeks. So yeah, we want that to drive the joint there. So we just parent constrain it, don't we? Like so. So now that moves around, that works well. We could do the same with that joint. Press G to repeat the last command. And there we've got the control manipulating the mesh. If I just hide the skeleton, if we move both of these around, so there. That works well, doesn't it? Yeah, you know. So the problem comes when you want to do something more with the head. So let's just select the head. As you can see, as we rotate the head, because obviously the head is going to be parent constrained to this head control here, you know, the cheek joints are locked in their position because they're being told where to be because of these two controls, because we've constrained them. So if you imagine we've got all the other controls constrained, as soon as you move the head joint, you know, they're all going to go with it. Well, they're not going to go with it. They're all going to stay in front. So that approach is not going to work. So let's just undo that. Like so. So we need to come up with another plan. We want this UI to be completely independent, so we can put this anywhere in the scene. You know, if you're animating the character, imagine this is a full body, he's off walking somewhere. You know, when it comes to animating the face, you want that to be anywhere you want to put it, depending on how you animate it, regardless of where this is. And we don't want to have to restrict these controls because of the head rotating and it causing that problem. But what we can do is we can add another layer on top of this in such a way so that, and well, basically let me just demonstrate rather than trying to explain it. We're just going to use locators. So let's go to create a locator, like so. I'm just going to hide the geometry for now. So let's snap that to the cheek. I'm going to duplicate that and let's just snap that to that cheek. Let's just copy that name and we'll call it lock, so we know it's a locator. Let's just copy that name there and we'll do the same there. We're also going to freeze the transforms, like so, because we need these to be 0, just like these are 0 here. What we're going to do now is just go to our connection editor and we're just going to directly connect these. So we reload those into the right, like so, and then we've got our controls here. Reload those into the left. So the translate of the left inner cheek is going to be directly connected to the left inner cheek of here. And the same with this one. Now that dropped down slightly, but if you notice, it's because it's got this value here. Now we've directly connected them because then it's working on the actual translation values rather than like with the parent constraint where it's constrained sort of in sort of a world space way. So now if I move these two around, you know, those locators are moving. But what we can do now is we can now constrain the joints to the locators. So we'll just do a parent constraint like so. Let's bring back the geometry. So now the controls are driving the locators, which are acting as an in-between, and the locators are driving the joints. We couldn't directly connect the controllers to the joints because joints always have translation values on, and if we did directly connected the controls to the joints, they would have been zeroed out and the joints would have gone off to the world root. So that's why we needed the locator to act as an in-between. So now the joint is parent constrained to the locator, but the locator is getting its translation values, and that's all from the control. Now if we rotate the head, we're still going to have the same problem because the locators are just floating in space. They're not actually underneath anything. So let's just connect up our head control. So we'll just parent constraint that. So now that controls the head. And all we need to do is make sure these locators are underneath the head control in the hierarchy. If I bring over the outliner, you can see our controls here. So let's go to our head control, reveal selected. So all we need to do is move these under the head, like so. It's causing that problem there because we should have frozen the transforms on the locators before we connected them. So let's just break those connections now. Yeah, sorry. Now we can parent them, and if you notice we've got a translate Z value there, we can just freeze that transform and then we can just go in and reconnect those. So let's close that. Let's move this over here. So we've got our cheat controls, got our locators. So left inner, left inner, left outer, left outer. So that was it. We just needed to freeze the transforms once the locators were put into the hierarchy. So we can now rotate the head, and those locators and the joints are going to happily follow where the head is. And regardless of what we do with the UI, you know, we can move that wherever we want and it's not going to have any effect. But then when we move the controls, they're moving the head, the cheeks, sort of relative to where the head is pointing. So that is ideal. That is a perfect sort of setup that we need. So all we need to do now, well, or should I say, all you need to do now is go through and do the same with all the other joints, create locators, parent constraint them, and then just connect them directly to your controls in here. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to go work my way through that, and I will pick things up in the next video.